Hey there, welcome to the Raspberry Pi tutorial. I thank you for enrolling for the course. I am Bappa, I'll be your mentor for the course. So we'll start as a complete beginner and we'll end up as an expert, okay? So let us begin with Raspberry Pi. So let us first begin with what is Raspberry Pi and how they are useful, why should we learn about them, and what are the models available, what are the accessories needed to run them. So let us get into a introduction first. So let's begin. In a single word, Raspberry Pi is a SBC, that is a single board computer. It runs on a Broadcom chipset that is located here. Okay, this is a 3B model. There are other models as well, so we'll talk about those models later. So is that it has got camera connection, display connection, HDMI connection, and jack for audio, Ethernet port, and 4 USB ports. So this model is here is 3B plus. So let us talk about different models, and please notice this, it has got a few pins as well, which is not there generally in computers. So because of these pins you can attach peripherals like some sensors, displays, etc. You can establish communication with I2C, SPI, etc. So that is why it is also sometimes very widely used as a IoT board, edge IoT board. So we'll talk about the usage part later. Okay, so this is a $20 computer, that is the lowest cost, and there are other higher cost versions as well. So let us look at the versions. So these are the three prominent versions: Raspberry Pi 0 and 0W, 3B, 3B plus, and Raspberry Pi 4B. This is the latest. 4B is available in actually three RAM options: 2GB, 4GB, and 8GB. 8GB being the costliest. So there is one site here. You can go here and you can see all the Raspberry Pis listed, and all the models. Okay, their release date and their feature sets, and all other connectivity options. So Raspberry Pi, since 0W, it has started having Wi-Fi and Bluetooth both. Okay, so and also another useful website is this one, the FAQ about Raspberry Pi documentation. Here are the prices. So you normally don't find A plus, B plus. Now it starts from like model 3, model 0, and Pi 4. Okay, so here are the accessories available for Raspberry Pi. So you can really accessorize a lot with Raspberry Pi. Some are mandatory, some are luxury. So let us have a look at the available accessories, and I'll talk about them in a bit detail. So the scene is a bit clumsy. As I have said earlier, you can accessorize a lot with Raspberry Pi. So let us have a look at the important ones first, and then we'll look at the optional ones. Okay, so first of all, you need a power supply. So please check the specification of the power supply. Okay, each model needs its own power supply. So I've given a link in the points to remember section in the last part. Okay, so pay attention there. And next you will need a micro SD card. Okay, to flash the code, so to install the OS. Okay, and you will need a adapter, and if you have a slot in your laptop or desktop, that's okay, or else you will need a card reader like this with USB port here. Okay, so this is the next one, and then of course you will need a keyboard. So here is the keyboard, and you will need a mouse. Okay, you can have a Bluetooth mouse as well with a Bluetooth dongle, so you can do that. And next you will need to connect your things to the display. So yes, HDMI to HDMI cable. Okay, so for the first time run, you need to connect to a HDMI display. It can be your TV, or it can be a desktop display with HDMI input, but later you can like connect through over wireless, and you can access it from your laptop as well. Okay, so please remember, for Raspberry Pi 0, the HDMI is a mini HDMI, so you will need something like this. Okay, mini to normal HDMI converter. And so this is one thing, so it goes like this. Okay, and then also the one of it will get the power. So please remember, this power in will get the power. So you cannot put like two keyboard and mouse both in one. USB port, so you might need to have an OTG. Okay, but don't use OTG like this. Okay, so the trouble is once you put this, you do not have enough room to put your power cable. Okay, so use something like this kind of OTG, so that's just a long way. Okay, so when you are ordering this kind of Raspberry Pi Zero, you can order along with this kind of accessories. So you can see the OTG and HDMI, and also you can see the pins, so you can solder the pin yourself also. Okay, but remember it is available in WH. You can get it shouldered pin, and their quality of soldering is much better, but that come at a cost, of course. And then you can have something like this from your OTG, and you can connect your mouse and keyboard both. So these are the things needed. Minimum Raspberry Pi 3 model has got many USB ports already, so you don't need an adapter of that kind. Okay, so we do not have that problem with Raspberry Pi 3. Then optionally you can have Ethernet cable. Okay, patch cable, also known as patch cable. And then there these are optional things. You can have a display connections to VGA display, from HDMI to VGA display. This is also optional. And then there are boxes available for Raspberry Pi Zero and Raspberry Pi 3B, nice boxes. Okay, but of course optional, but it will save from any shock or from dust. Okay, then there are batteries. Okay, power banks you can use when you use with this display. So there are hats available, Raspberry Pi hats. Those are like things that directly go into Raspberry Pi. Like this is, you can call a hat kind of thing. So you can just directly fix it on the Raspberry Pi, so it goes this way. Okay, this way. So hats are all like this, you can use them like this. So this is also optional. This is a touch screen. So when you have something like this, you can have a power bank to run the Raspberry Pi. And other things, you can have cameras on the Raspberry Pi. So there are too many other options as well. So it's up to you how much you want to accessorize. So let us now get into a heavily debated topic of comparing Raspberry Pi with other IoT boards available like Arduino Uno, ESP8266 or ESP32. So the thing is, all these devices can be used at edge because Raspberry has got a few pins, so you can attach sensors and you can communicate with the sensors in I2C or SPI communication protocols. So certainly Raspberry Pi can be used at edge, and so this three also can be used at edge, but the cost of this don't justify the functionality. So for just reading and getting sensor data, it's good to have these boards at the edge. And the other point is these boards running on microcontrollers, so they do not have a heavy processor, a heavy operating system. They runs on bootloader and simple OS. So they don't burn a lot of battery, so they can run at age like 6 months, 1 year. But Raspberry Pi, you cannot think of running it on battery. So this is one thing about IoT. And then in next part, in Raspberry Pi, because it is a single board computer, it has got bigger RAM and memory and many USB ports, Ethernet cable, so you can use it like a computer. You can run your server, edge server in it. So like you can install MySQL, Apache server, okay, PHP, but you cannot do those here. You have to, like, you can run a simple Python server or C server, simply coded, but you can run this LAMP stack or XAMPP stack. Okay, so that is where the difference lies. So these are like IoT boards with sensors that can be deployed at edge, but cannot are not very good for a gateway. But this thing, Raspberry Pi, can be used as a edge gateway, and it can like aggregate the data from a lot of sensors at edge and then do some processing and maintain a server there, and if needed can communicate to other cloud servers or any other server. So that is where Raspberry Pi is very helpful. So that is why there are already industrial IoT sensors based on Raspberry Pi also. If you see, this is Advantech IoT gateway. It is an industrial IoT gateway. Okay, and you can see it is built on, designed for customer using Raspberry Pi single board computer. So that is where it fits the best. Okay, So in the end, let us have a look at the points to remember from this introduction. So the best size of micro SD card you can have is 16 GB or 32 GB. I guess 16 GB is best. Don't take more than 32 GB because Windows normally by default do flash bigger than 32 GB micro SD cards with exFAT 32 file format system. So that is not acceptable by Raspberry Pi. And if you take 8 GB, there is a trouble like this. Okay, so I did try Noops with 8 GB, and after selecting this Raspberry Pi, this OS, it told me I needed some more memory, but available is less. Okay, so that is why stick to 16 GB or maybe 32 GB. And the next, in Raspberry Pi there is no on off switch, so as soon as you plug in and switch on, it goes on. Okay, and when you switch off, the LED here, red and green, based on version of OS that you install, red will be always on, green can be off or on, so even after shutdown those will be on. Okay, and current spec I have already told you, so follow that very religiously. So here it is for you once more. So this is very much needed. Okay, so refer this. So there are many problems happen because of low current issue, and you won't be able to understand, and you will be troubleshooting elsewhere. Okay, and the last part is Pi 0 has 2 micro USB. Mind the power USB. Okay, don't put your power in the other one. I did that mistake and get away with it, but maybe not recommended. So don't risk that because these are costly boards. Okay, so with that we finish our introduction here. So let us begin in the next part when we will do the setup of Raspberry Pi. Okay, thank you.